Hurricane Delta makes landfall in Louisiana. Millions are at risk of flooding.
I know that the people all over Louisiana, in particular southwest Louisiana, are very strong. They're going to be tested here.
Plus, CSU with its own crisis as the Cameron Peak fire sets a course straight through its mountain campus.
Fire is so unpredictable. You know, it has its mind of its own.
Cory Gardner and John Hickenlooper square off in tonight's Denver7 debate.
John is convinced that this race is about him.
You're proud of your support for President
John,
Trump.
I'm not going to support a socialist.
And Blackhawk says it has a gambling problem, as in the wages don't go high enough.
Colorado has the lowest bet limits in the country.
There are hundreds of millions of dollars from Coloradans that is leaving the state of Colorado today to gamble in other places.
Hurricane Delta making landfall tonight along the Louisiana coastline, an area just now beginning to recover from when Laura passed through just a few weeks ago.
The storm hit as a Category 2, sustained winds of 100 miles per hour. Storm surges already have been reported of 8 feet.
Delta is expected to deteriorate rapidly and become a tropical depression by morning as it swings north. Until then, locals are hoping its bark will prove more ferocious than its bite.
You just hope for the best and prepare for the worst. There's going to be some worry no matter what, but we've been through it before. We just take it one thing at a time.
As of this hour, we have not heard of any deaths. Hundreds of thousands of people, though, are without power across Louisiana and Texas.
We likely won't know the extent of the damages until tomorrow at the earliest, but the Cameron Peak fire now is burning on both sides of CSU's mountain campus. Crews say as hard as this news is to hear, this current track is actually the best case scenario.
Fire is so unpredictable. You know, it has its mind of its own sometimes. We can do all the preparation out there that we can, and we work really hard. And I'll tell you, this crew that we have in here right now, they're one of the best crews I've seen working on this.
Better news in southern Colorado, where evacuation orders have been lifted over a fire near the Manitou Incline. Arson is suspected.
For a second straight day, Colorado is reporting more than 800 cases of coronavirus. 380 hospital beds are now in use by patients suspected or confirmed to have it.
There are people hospitalized in every demographic. The length of stay, we're seeing about 4 to 5 days is the average, a long spread. So some people 2 to 3 days, and then what affects that average is some are 30, 40, 50 days. And those are the ones where you get into a much higher risk of them never making it out.
Governor Polis also said today he will be extending the mask mandate into November. It was due to expire on Monday.
A Southern Colorado church has won its fight against Governor Polis and the Teller County Health Department, but not the war. Today, a judge granted the county a temporary restraining order against Andrew Womack Ministries. This applies to future events as well as one this week. Now, one issue here, the conference has already wrapped up. The ministry packed in roughly 500 people for the event. The limit on gatherings, of course, is 175. And the pandemic and how well the nation's responded to it was one of the first topics tonight in Denver7 debate between Cory Gardner and John Hickenlooper.
And I asked Senator Gardner if he's proud of the way President Trump has handled the crisis. And he declined to answer the question directly. And I did not ask that question of Hickenlooper, but he answered it all the same.
We shouldn't be proud of anybody who passes away. The fact that we've had 2,000 lives lost, the hundreds of thousands of lives we've seen in the United States lost. This isn't a question of pride. This is a question of getting through this together. I believe we must get through this by staying together, staying united.
The bottom line is that President Trump has, from the very beginning, his negligence in identifying the real challenge and the risk of COVID-19, and then the incompetence of the response once they finally owned up to it, that has made our consequences more severe than any industrialized, or pretty much any industrialized country in the world.
And you can see the full 90-minute debate on thedenverchannel.com or whichever app or device you use to watch us. We will also have a much more detailed recap, including some of the more testy exchanges ahead on Denver7 News at 10. And supporters of both Gardner and Hickenlooper showed up at our station ahead of the debate to cheer on their candidate, as well as to jeer against the opposition. And surprisingly, a third group showed up as well. While holding signs that called out the influence of Turkey in a recent conflict, they demanded the U.S. condemn Azerbaijan for what they believe amounts to genocide against the Armenian people.
And we're here because our families are receiving cluster bombs at the hands of Azerbaijan. We're here because the churches in which we have prayed are being targeted and bombed by the Azerbaijani government repeatedly, and we're asking this to stop.
And late this evening, the two sides agreed on a ceasefire and to begin negotiations in earnest. More than 300 people have been killed since late September. About 3,000 people of Armenian descent call Colorado home.
Your ballot should be arriving any day in the mail. County started shipping them out this morning. You can mail them back until October 26. After that, it's best to use a drop box. And one of the many issues you'll find on the ballot is gambling.
More specifically, how much you should be allowed to wager per bet. Denver7 political reporter Megan Lopez takes the conversation 360.
If there's one thing old mining towns like Blackhawk know how to do, it's reinvent themselves. From the booms and busts of prospecting.
These towns, when gaming was legalized in 1990, they were like ghost towns.
To the gold rush known as gambling.
This kind of saved them.
This year, once again, the town has fallen on hard times.
We've been almost in an alternate universe. We had 6 hours notice to shut down our properties.
COVID-19 closed down businesses and crippled an economy driven by tourism.
Our capacity is still limited. We're about 25% of fire code capacity. It's really challenging.
These towns are resilient. Now they're asking for the ability to reinvent themselves once again. Amendment 77 would give Blackhawk, Cripple Creek, and Central City local control to decide whether to increase gambling limits.
Colorado has the lowest bet limits in the country. At the moment, they are allowed to do bets up to $100.
It also allows them to vote on adding new games.
Right now we have kind of the most traditional games you could think of: blackjack, poker, craps, roulette. The biggest game that we don't have today is baccarat.
Supporters say a change would bring in more tax relief and make Colorado competitive with other states.
There are hundreds of millions of dollars from Coloradans that is leaving the state of Colorado today to gamble in other places.
And they say much of the new money would go to community colleges to help with student retention and graduation rates. There's no organized opposition to Amendment 77, but there have been a couple of published editorials saying raising limits could contribute to gambling problems. The Blue Book analysis also pointed out that none of the new money would go to gambling addiction programs and that surrounding cities wouldn't receive revenue to offset the additional tourist traffic. Even if Amendment 77 passes, there's no immediate change.
Each one of those three towns has to decide what they want to do with the residents.
Meaning each of those towns would have to put it on the ballot for their voters to decide how, when, or whether to reinvent themselves.
Let the three gaming towns that are most affected by gaming decide what's best for them and what's best for their communities.
Megan Lopez, Denver7.
And slowly but surely, we are going through the ballot in detail, and you can find that coverage online.
Beauty, of course, is in the eye of the beholder.
And from where we're standing, our viewers look fantastic. Gary Brode tonight with a look at your handiwork.
Lately, Kaylee Ray has been all smiles.
I'm just happy. I feel more energized. I feel more calm now.
The award-winning photographer is back doing what she loves.
I go outside and I take pictures. I've been to the mountains.
She even took some photos of herself while she laid in a hospital bed, recovering from surgery to remove a tumor from her brain.
Right wrapped around my optical nerve on my right side.
When we met Kaylee back in August, that tumor threatened her eyesight.
I don't want to lose my sense of smell. I don't want to lose my eyesight.
Not long after our story aired, Kaylee's tumor was removed.
It healed really well. The scar, I'm really happy with that.
She also found out it was benign.
It makes me happy. Yeah, it's just like a gift knowing that everything's going to be okay.
Not only did surgery save her eyesight, it cured her of migraines she suffered from every day for nearly 2 years.
Every day I would have this migraine and I couldn't move my head like this. It would be so bad. And like I couldn't walk.
But her recovery is long, and she's unable to work until December.
My rent is my big issue. That's my most important.
So many people were touched by your story that they reached out, they wanted to help. We raised about $6,000 to help you during your recovery. So here's a check right here to cover your rent for the rest of your lease.
Bless you guys so much. I'm very thankful for everything. You guys mean a lot to me, and I'm just so happy that I have all of you. Even people I don't know, I'm just so grateful.
For Denver7 Gives.
Thank you so much. Can I give you a hug?
Absolutely. I'm Gary Brode, Denver7.
On paper, her job was to screen employees for coronavirus. In reality,
first we were told to threaten them with no pay.
A whistleblower's account of one of the worst outbreaks in our state. Coming up on Denver7 News at 10.
Arson is suspected in a fire that destroyed a shrine to a fallen Jeffco deputy.
I would hope that somebody wasn't targeting this to send a message, an anti-police sentiment.